And we will now take you around the world in the next 30 minutes, starting with what's happening in India. French President Emmanuel Macron is in India for a 4-day visit. He arrived in New Delhi last night and was received by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Macron's visit is aimed at strengthening the bilateral, economic, political and strategic dimensions between the two countries. French President Emmanuel Macron said that Rafale fighter jet deal with India was beneficial for both the countries, with New Delhi negotiating to protect its economic and strategic interests while France got a foothold into the Indian market. One day after India shamed Pakistan in the United Nations and said it is time Islamabad ended border infiltration, Pakistan has admitted that India is making it pay. Pakistan Foreign Minister Khwaja Asif said that the situation on the line of control has been rapidly declining since 2017. The GST Council is likely to consider levying 18% tax on alcohol in its meeting scheduled today. The council, which will be chaired by Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, is also expected to finalize a simplified return filing procedure for businesses registered under goods and services tax regime. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will digitally inaugurate National Legislators Conference on the theme Weave for Development in the Parliament today. The inaugural session will be attended by Union Ministers, Chief Ministers, presiding officers of the states, Members of Parliament and MLAs. Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi will address the Indian diaspora in Malaysia today. He will meet the Prime Minister and later interact with members of the IIM Alumni Association and Indian Overseas Congress meeting. South Indian star Kamal Haasan will embark upon his second leg of Reach Out program for his new party. In his 2-day tour in Coimbatore, Haasan will meet party workers and meet villagers. India says Tibetan Buddhist spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, is accorded all freedom to carry out religious activities in India. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ravish Kumar said the Dalai Lama was a revered leader who was deeply respected by the people of India and there was no change in government's position on it. Hundreds of people in India's western Surat city conducted a mass prayer session over the humanitarian crisis in Syria. People prayed for the people in the Syria while children carried placards appealing to stop the killings. Videos uploaded on social media purported to show warplanes flying over Syria's eastern Ghouta and targeting the rebel-held enclave, in one case hitting a building near a member of Civil Defense Forces, also known as White Helmets. At least 950 civilians have been killed in the region so far. Syrian state television said a number of fighters and their families had begun to leave the besieged rebel-held enclave of eastern Ghouta on the outskirts of Damascus. State TV said 13 fighters and their families had arrived at the crossing point. In Turkey's military operation, President Tayyip Erdogan said Turkey's military and its rebel allies had besieged the northern Syrian town of Afrin and were nearing its town center. Turkey launched its operation dubbed Olive Branch in northern Syria nearly 7 weeks ago to sweep the Syrian Kurdish YPG from the Turkish border. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees said it is very premature to talk about returning refugees to Syria because the situation there remains insecure and dangerous. Filippo Grandi said that 89% of the Syrian people the UN had surveyed in Lebanon wanted to return to Syria eventually, but almost all of them say not right now. An emergency aid convoy crossed front lines into the besieged rebel enclave of eastern Ghouta and delivered its supplies, braving shellfire and airstrikes in the area amid a fierce government offensive. The 13 food trucks unloaded all their food aid in the town of Duma and returned to government-held territory despite fighting. Syrian army soldiers continued an offensive on eastern Ghouta and recaptured Jersin farms in southern Ghouta on Friday. In less than 2 weeks, the Syrian army has retaken all the farmland in eastern Ghouta under cover of near ceaseless shelling and airstrikes. Israeli soldiers shot dead a Palestinian man during clashes in the occupied West Bank on Friday. An Israeli military spokesman said the man was about to throw a firebomb at the troops who were responding to an immediate threat. When they shot him before the man was buried, scores of Palestinians carried out his body on a funeral procession through Hebron, chanting and clapping. A gunman entered a party at a California home for disabled veterans, fired shots and took at least 3 hostages. But there have been no reports of injuries in the incident. Police have not made contact with the gunman at the Untitled Veterans Home located in Napa Valley, wine country, about 50 miles northeast of San Francisco. Pakistan Foreign Minister Khwaja Asif accused the United States of trying to use Islamabad as a proxy in defending its interest in Afghanistan. He rejected U.S. allegations that Pakistan was supporting Haqqani network and Taliban and said the Taliban are operating in 43% of Afghanistan, and yet U.S. blames Pakistan for facilitating the Haqqani network. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said time and place for Kim-Trump meet has not been determined yet. She said that United States has made 0 concessions, but North Korea has made some promises and that the meeting won't take place without concrete actions that match the promises made by North Korea. After the stunning announcement that President Trump had agreed to meeting with North Korean leader, United States Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said that the U.S. policy on North Korea executed by the State Department has succeeded. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence said Kim Jong-un's decision to invite Donald Trump to a historic summit is evidence that the U.S. leader's strategy to isolate the Kim regime is working. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump on Friday discussed the situation on the Korean Peninsula and bilateral relations via phone. Now, Xi told Trump that he appreciates the U.S. president's desire to resolve the Korean Peninsula issue politically, hoping that the United States and North Korea will start dialogue as soon as possible. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, a spokesman, said the chief is encouraged by the planned meeting between the U.S. president and North Korean leader. Russia believes that a possible meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is a step in the right direction. South Korea's President Moon Jae-in expressed his thanks to the U.S. President Donald Trump for accepting talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The top United Nations human rights official called for alleged atrocities committed against the Muslim Rohingya minority in Myanmar to be referred to the International Criminal Court for prosecution. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights also urged Myanmar's government to allow monitors into northern Rakhine state to investigate what he called suspected act of genocide against the Muslim minority. WTO spokesman Dan Pruzin said World Trade Organization members still have time to discuss the United States tariffs on steel and aluminium imports signed by President Donald Trump on Thursday, and it is up to them what happens next. Speaking at a news briefing in Geneva, Pruzin said the WTO has yet to discern the legal basis of the new measures. European Union's Commissioner for Trade said the EU expects to be excluded from US steel and aluminium tariffs but will go to the World Trade Organization in order to impose its own countermeasures if Washington presses ahead. President Donald Trump said he has spoken with Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull and that they are working on an agreement so Australia will not be subject to US tariffs on steel and aluminium. French Finance Minister said Europe must respond to US President Donald Trump's new tariffs on steel and aluminium with a united voice if it seeks impactful countermeasures. He added there would be only losers in the trade war that could result from tariffs imposed by Washington. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the best solution to defuse a trade dispute between the United States and the European Union over President Donald Trump's imposition of tariffs on steel would be to exempt the bloc from duties. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte said the European Union must be prepared to take countermeasures against US steel and aluminium tariffs. Florida Governor Rick Scott signed into a law bill from the legislature that raises the legal age for buying rifles, imposes a 3-day waiting period on all gun sales, and allows the arming of some school employees. In the aftermath of the shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, U.S. President Donald Trump, as well as a number of other politicians and television commentators, have cited an urgency to screen individuals with mental health disorders more effectively and, if necessary, use that screening to determine which individual pose a threat of carrying out some future school shooting or other violence. A former campaign aide to President Donald Trump, who made news earlier in the week for saying he would not comply with the subpoena from Special Counsel Robert Mueller, arrived at court on Friday and was expected to testify before a grand jury. Martin Shkreli, the former drug company executive dubbed the Pharma Bro, has been sentenced to 7 years and a $75,000 fine. He's accused of jacking up the price of a life-saving drug and was found guilty of defrauding investors. Britain deployed specialist troops to remove potentially contaminated objects from the English city where a Russian former double agent and his daughter were poisoned with a nerve agent. About 180 troops, including some with chemical expertise, have been sent to the city to remove ambulances and other vehicles involved in the incident. British police sealed off a cemetery with the remains of the son and wife of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal are buried. British police have confirmed the former double agent and his daughter had been poisoned with a nerve agent. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Britain was trying to raise tensions over spy poisoning incident and its warnings of retaliation were propaganda. Lavrov said Russian officials had not a single concrete fact about what had happened to the Russian former double agent and his daughter, who were poisoned with a nerve agent. China's new yuan denominated loans in February stood at 839.3 billion yuan, which is 326.4 billion yuan less than the same period a year earlier. The amount, slightly above the market forecast of around 800 billion yuan, declined markedly from a record high 2.9 trillion yuan in January. A Ukrainian who negotiated the exchange of prisoners in the eastern conflict zone was placed under court-order detention on suspicion of preparing terrorist acts. This after he was caught transporting weapons into Ukraine-held territory. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said that Kenya should not stifle the media and threaten the courts. The Kenyan government shut down 3 television channels in January as the stations planned to live stream opposition leader Raila Odinga taking a symbolic presidential oath. Kenya's opposition leader Raila Odinga called President Uhuru Kenyatta his brother and promised they would both start the process of bringing the people together after last year's contentious elections. Now, Kenyatta said elections come and go, but as leaders they both had a responsibility to find solutions. The United Nations warned that more than 2 million children in the Democratic Republic of Congo are estimated to be at risk of dying from severe acute malnutrition if they do not get the aid they need. UN humanitarian chief will meet donors next week in the country where conditions in many areas are worsening. Venezuelans feeling the economic and political crisis in their country are finding refuge in a part of Lima where a shelter provides them food, a place to sleep and helps them find work. The 300 square meter shelter is cramped, almost filled to capacity with some 85 people, but the residents there are relieved to have escaped the challenges of their home country. Salvadoran Archbishop Oscar Romero, our champion of the poor, who became a human rights icon in Latin America where he was killed by a right-wing death squad in 1980, will be made a Roman Catholic saint. Romero's path to sainthood had stalled under 2 previous popes, reflecting concerns by some that he was overly political. Tens of thousands of Slovaks rallied to demand the resignation of Prime Minister Robert Fico's government following the murder of a journalist that has shocked the Central European nation and stoked anger over sleaze in public life. In a quest to draw support for its maritime claim against Chile, Bolivia has created a 244-kilometer-long flag believed to be the largest in the world. The flag will be carried by 60 activists, 17,000 soldiers and 3,000 police officers along the highway that joins the cities of Oruro and El Alto. Two members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police fainted as Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau held a news conference to mark the appointment of Brenda Loki to head the force. The previous commissioner, Bob Paulson, retired last June after more than 5 years on the job. Tropical cyclone HOLA has hit the overseas French territory of New Caledonia after tearing off roofs and knocking out communications in Vanuatu earlier in the week. Now, video posted on social media shows the storm swaying palm trees in Niue and the territory's capital. Two trapped whales were freed from a fishing net in the high sea after a massive effort by El Salvador. Authorities say the massive rescue effort also included fishermen, biologists, veterinarians and marine officials. Despite a dark past, residents in Tultepec on the outskirts of Mexico City celebrated the patron saint of fireworks in December 2016, days before Christmas. Heavy explosions at the San Pablito open-air market in Tultepec killed 42 and injured dozens. After nearly 70 years of producing royal merchandise, British luxury gift company Halcyon Days is hoping the upcoming wedding of Britain's Prince Harry and his American fiancée Meghan Markle will be a happy one for them as well as the bride and groom. The wedding could be worth as much as $1.38 billion to the UK economy, according to one estimate. Sweden's Princess Madeleine and her husband Chris O'Neill welcomed their third child as the princess gave birth to a baby girl at a Stockholm hospital on Friday. The child is the couple's third after Princess Leonor and Prince Nicholas. Thousands got inked with images ranging from Chinese dragons to video game characters as this year's Paris International Tattoo Fair opened in the French capital. Over 400 tattoo artists were present at the show, with some coming from as far as Taiwan and Australia to take part in the 3-day event. Users of Amazon's Alexa products have taken to social media to report the random burst of laughter coming out of the intelligent personal assistant. New Yorker golfers uploaded a video to his Twitter page appearing to demonstrate the creepy laugh that had just interrupted a conversation that he was having with his sister.